what if the shows you watched weren't created just for laughs or late-night escapes? What if they were coded messages and warnings about how the media wants to control the way you see the world? From the biting satire of the Boondocks to the dystopian visions of Black Mirror, both series point to a reality that is hard to ignore. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. These shows, though wildly different in style, share a hidden message. Let's break it down. But before we do, make sure you hit subscribe. On this channel, we break down Black representation in film, TV, and culture to expose the truth and hidden messages that mainstream media don't want you to see. Now, onto the video. The story of media's hold over Black minds is not new. It has roots in old minstrel shows, radio programs, and news coverage that decided which Black voices deserved to be heard and which ones would be silenced. But modern television and streaming platforms have taken that manipulation to another level. And this is where the Boondocks enters the conversation. Not as a simple cartoon, but as a sharp weapon of satire. To understand how the Boondocks warned us about media control, we have to look at what Aaron McGruder built and why it shook audiences so deeply. When the Boondocks first appeared on Adult Swim in 2005, it looked like an edgy cartoon with anime-inspired art and a heavy dose of Black culture. But Aaron McGruder wasn't trying to make a feel-good family show. He was creating satire that cut directly into the way media shapes the Black community. His characters weren't just for laughs. They were symbols of how different segments of Black America consume and respond to what's fed through television, radio, and celebrity culture. Huey Freeman, the radical child revolutionary, was McGruder's mouthpiece. He represented the rare figure willing to call out the illusions built by mass media. His younger brother Riley, obsessed with gangster rap and street culture, embodied how entertainment programming could mold a child's worldview. And their grandfather Robert Freeman represented the older generation, caught between trying to maintain tradition and getting swept into whatever fad the media told him was valuable. Through this family, McGruder created a stage to explore what happens when a community lives under constant bombardment of curated images and narratives. Episodes like The Trial of R. Kelly stand as some of the clearest examples of this critique. In that episode, the entire town is ready to defend R. Kelly despite overwhelming evidence of his abuse. The court becomes a circus, with fans cheering, singing, and excusing his actions. Huey, standing almost alone, calls out the insanity of protecting a celebrity at the expense of a victim. McGruder used this moment to expose a brutal truth. When media glorifies someone enough, audiences will defend them even against facts. It wasn't just a joke about a real case. It was a blueprint for how media power works, especially when it comes to Black entertainers who are elevated to godlike status. Another sharp moment came with The Hunger Strike and the Uncle Ruckus reality show, episodes that pulled the curtain back on the role of networks themselves. McGruder satirized BET as a company willing to exploit Black pain and stereotypes for ratings. Through outrageous exaggeration, he suggested that mainstream platforms didn't care about uplifting Black voices, only about selling an image that would attract attention and advertising dollars. It was a direct attack on the system that profits from distorting Black identity. Adult Swim pulled some of these episodes from broadcast, which only underscored how dangerous it can be when satire hits too close to the truth. The genius of the Boondocks was that it forced viewers to laugh at the very mechanisms that were shaping them. McGruder made it uncomfortable to recognize yourself in Riley's blind idolization of rap icons, or in Robert's willingness to go along with whatever television told him was cool. Every joke had a sting. The series revealed that media's control doesn't always come in the form of propaganda. It often arrives wrapped in comedy, music, or celebrity worship, distractions powerful enough to stop people from asking harder questions. Now, if the Boondocks showed how media manipulates through culture and entertainment, Black Mirror takes the warning further by showing what happens when technology becomes the ultimate medium of control. while the Boondocks attacked media influence with satire rooted in Black culture. Black Mirror approached the same problem through a broader dystopian lens. Created by Charlie Brooker, the series was designed to feel like a nightmare version of our own present. Every episode explored how technology, screens, and digital systems could reshape human behavior. The focus wasn't comedy, it was horror. And yet, many of the ideas connect directly to the same dangers Magruder was exposing: the way media tells people what to value, what to ignore, and who to become. One of the clearest examples comes from the episode 15 Million Merits. It imagines a world where people live inside screens, earning digital credits by pedaling stationary bikes. Every surface is a screen, every interaction is monitored, and entertainment dominates every waking moment. The characters are forced to consume ads, reality TV shows, and constant distractions, with almost no way to escape. When one character, Abby, tries to express herself as a singer, the system twists her voice into another commodity, offering her a contract as a porn performer instead. The episode reveals how media industries can take raw human expression, especially from marginalized voices, and transform it into a product that strips away dignity. For Black audiences, this critique feels familiar, echoing the way Black music, dance, and culture have been packaged and sold for generations, often detached from the communities that created them. Another powerful episode, Nosedive, focuses on social validation. In this world, every person has a score based on how others rate them. One wrong interaction, one negative rating, and a person's life can unravel, losing jobs, homes, and social standing. It is satire about technology, but it also reflects something much deeper about media's ability to regulate behavior. Social media platforms today operate on the same principle, rewarding people for conformity and punishing those who resist the dominant narratives. For Black users, this often means that outspoken critique of racism can be flagged as hate speech, while racist content remains unchecked. In this sense, Nosedive is not just about the future, it is about the present reality of algorithmic control. What makes Black Mirror resonate is its ability to show how media and technology merge into a seamless system of thought control. Unlike the Boondocks, which uses characters and jokes rooted in Black American culture, Black Mirror presents scenarios that appear universal. But for Black viewers, the warning hits in specific ways. The episodes mirror a world where Black creativity is commodified, where Black voices are silenced or rebranded, and where digital systems often reinforce old racial hierarchies under the guise of neutrality. The show becomes a lens to understand not just the risks of technology, but the risks of technology in the hands of institutions that have historically profited from controlling Black identity. What connects the Boondocks and Black Mirror is the recognition that the media environment is not a natural space. It is an engineered system. Both series show how people are conditioned through images, stories, and platforms that appear harmless, but serve as tools of discipline. Whether it's Riley copying the music videos he watches, or an entire society rating each other into submission, the underlying message is the same. If you don't understand how the system works, you end up serving it without even knowing. And this brings us to the heart of the discussion, the media plan for Black minds. Because if both satire and dystopia point to the same pattern, then it's worth asking, what exactly is the strategy behind shaping Black thought through screens? If satire and dystopia are pointing to the same thing, then we need to talk about the system that sits behind them. Because the shaping of Black thought through media is not random. It has always been structured. What Aaron Magruder and Charlie Brooker highlighted in different ways is that media has a plan. It doesn't only entertain. It directs attention, molds perception, and establishes boundaries for what people believe is possible. And when it comes to Black minds, this plan is as old as American media itself. The earliest forms of mass entertainment already reveal this pattern. Minstrel shows in the 19th century used exaggerated caricatures of Black people to define how white audiences thought about Black life. Newspapers in the Jim Crow era reported crimes with racialized language that fueled stereotypes and justified oppression. Early Hollywood films like Birth of a Nation didn't just reflect racism, they actively shaped it, convincing audiences that black men were dangerous and white supremacy was heroic. The strategy was clear: create images that lock black people into narrow roles, then repeat them until they become cultural common sense. Fast forward to the 20th century, and you see the same logic in a new form. Television brought the ability to beam these images directly into every household. On one side, shows presented sanitized versions of black life, often stripping away the realities of racism to present a palatable fantasy for mainstream audiences. On the other side, news broadcasts amplified images of black poverty, crime, or protest, often framing them as social threats. Both sides of this strategy, idealized and demonized, functioned to keep black identity within controlled boundaries. It was never about showing the full complexity of black humanity. It was about telling the public, including black viewers themselves, what blackness was allowed to mean. This is where the Boondocks become so crucial. Magruder's satire exposed how these patterns didn't just exist in white-controlled spaces, but were also being internalized within black communities. Riley's obsession with gangster rap was a critique of how young black minds were being steered by a music industry that sold rebellion while quietly reinforcing destructive stereotypes. Granddad's eagerness to follow television trends highlighted how media teaches people to desire things that don't serve them. Magruder wasn't just mocking individuals, he was showing how an entire culture could be manipulated by an industry that profits off caricatures and conformity. Meanwhile, Black Mirror demonstrates how this same control is evolving under digital technology. Algorithms don't just reflect what you like, they shape what you see. For black users, this means being pushed toward content that fits pre-existing stereotypes, or having voices of resistance drowned out by a flood of distractions. The digital era hasn't erased the old plan. It has perfected it, making it more invisible. Where minstrel shows once made audiences laugh at distorted images of black life, now social media can do the same thing by amplifying skits, memes, and viral content that reduce black identity to something easy to consume. And where news once controlled the narrative about black protest, now platforms can throttle or redirect conversations with the quiet adjustments of an algorithm. This is the essence of the media plan. Control the image, and you control the thought. When communities begin to believe the images they see more than the realities they live, then the screen has already won. Both the Boondocks and Black Mirror hammer this point home in their own ways. Magruder shows what happens when a community begins to laugh at its own caricatures, even as they cause harm. Brooker shows what happens when technology makes people believe they are freely choosing their own path, while in reality, every choice has been pre-programmed. And for black audiences, the stakes are even higher. Because media influence doesn't just shape individual identity, it shapes political outcomes, cultural movements, and even economic opportunities. If young people believe that success is only possible through entertainment or athletics, then other paths of empowerment remain closed. If protest movements are portrayed as chaotic or criminal, then legitimate demands for justice can be dismissed. If digital platforms prioritize distraction over knowledge, then entire communities can be steered away from building the kind of awareness needed to challenge systemic control. It was all strategic, and it has been visible in every stage of American media history. When you place the Boondocks and Black Mirror side by side, the message is unmistakable, and the question becomes, do we remain passive consumers of its plan, or do we learn to see through it and reclaim our own narratives? The reality is that every platform, every network, and every algorithm is built on control. It rewards certain behaviors, elevates certain narratives, and erases others. If you don't question it, you end up living inside it, shaped by forces you can't see. And for black minds, the cost is even greater. Because the screen doesn't just show a reflection, it creates one. It tells the world who you are, even when that story is incomplete or distorted. But the flip side is just as true. Once you recognize the plan, you can resist it. You can see Huey's warnings for what they were. You can see how Black Mirror episodes are not science fiction. They are reality checks. You can choose what you consume, and you can reject the narratives that strip away dignity. Awareness itself becomes power. So the next time you watch a show, scroll a feed, or laugh at a meme, remember, it might not just be for entertainment. The question is whether you let it control you, or whether you see through it and write your own story instead. If this breakdown opened your eyes, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into Black culture, history, and media. Drop a comment with your favorite Boondocks or Black Mirror moment, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because the media will always have a plan for your mind. But together, we can make sure that plan doesn't win.